Deborah Hall.
Okay. So we're ready.
Yes, so
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Well, introduce myself. My name is Tom Dean. I run Accurate Home Inspections. Thank you guys so much for braving the elements and coming out here for lunch. Looks like you'll have some leftovers. That's awesome. I just want to start out, talk a little bit about myself, my background, why I got into this business, and then I want to take some questions from you guys as to how I can help your clients with their homes. So here's the quick. All right, I'm stuck already. How do I get it to advance?
Did you click it?
Yeah. Oh,
There it
there's
goes.
one.
Okay.
Okay, first thing about me is I was born in Michigan, but I was raised in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I didn't realize how lucky I was to be in that area at the time because I wasn't a big country fan. That's where a lot of the country stars lived. I went to school with George Jones, Tammy Wynette's daughter. Johnny Cash went to the same church. He ordered pizza from me one night at the pizza joint I worked at. And well, as you see, a lot of the country stars would live in Hendersonville to get away from Nashville.
How far is Hendersonville from Nashville?
Well, it used to be about 30 minutes, but I think traffic is now making it closer to 45 or an hour. Barbara Mandrell lived right up the street from us. She used to walk her dog down by the house, you know, in the evenings, big old St. Bernard. But the big thing was Taylor Swift moved her parents into our neighborhood. This was after I was gone, and she attended the same high school that I graduated from, which was kind of cool. A friend of mine I graduated with, her daughter wound up being besties with Taylor Swift as she was going to school there. So that was kind of cool.
Hendersonville. My husband and I lived there.
You did?
For a while, he was on staff at a church in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Wow, we were right,
Long Hollow Baptist.
Long Hollow Baptist.
They did some of the worship with David Landry,
wow,
pastor.
we went to St. Timothy Lutheran there.
Okay.
Do you know where that is? Anyway, small world. Here I go again. I did a plumbing apprenticeship at Opryland theme park when it was there, and that was quite an experience. I did a 4-year plumbing apprenticeship, and then when I got finished, I said I need to move to Florida, get where the sun is and where there's no winters, and I wound up there for quite a while. I wound up living there for like 34 years.
What part of Florida?
I was on the East Central Coast. Cocoa Beach is where I first moved. That's actually a picture of the Cocoa Beach Pier back before it got destroyed by one of the hurricanes. So I worked. Huh?
I Dream of Jeannie.
Yep. They actually have I Dream of Jeannie Lane there now. But I worked as a plumber, pipe fitter, and HVAC mechanic while I was there. I did 12 years in the trades, which being where I was, it gave me plenty of opportunities. One of the big ones that I'll always remember is I worked on the deluge pit and the launch pad for the space shuttles as they went. With that, everybody thinks is smoke is actually steam because they pump about tons of water onto the pad to keep it from blowing up the concrete and everything else. So that it's pretty interesting getting up there close to the space shuttle. And of course, I guess everybody that lives there has opportunity to work at Disney. I worked on building Hollywood studios, ran a bunch of copper lines through Hollywood studios, and had the opportunity to work at the Magic Kingdom as well. And on top of that, plenty of schools, office buildings, apartments, and even a few houses. And even, we used to do a lot of house HVAC change-outs in residential facilities as I was there as kind of side work. Then I got talked into, during a low point in construction, I worked as an assistant in an exceptional education classroom, and I wound up loving it, becoming a teacher, wound up getting my master's degree, becoming an administrator at high school, and spent most of my career doing that. Then I got out. So you're thinking, how does this guy become a home inspector? Well, when throughout my life, I purchased many homes, I think 5. One of them, my first one, I was in construction. I don't need a home inspection. And I bought a money pit. Had termites, and I found that out like one of the first weeks I was there. In the shower, it's like, that wall looks funny, and I put my foot right through the wall of the shower, and it was downhill from there on. On a 2-inch slab settlement, I had a friend of mine come work on the air conditioner, and he hit it off at the breaker, and it didn't cut the unit off. He's like, oh, that's weird. Got into the panel, and there was all sorts of home wiring changes in there. So it wound up being a disaster. Anyway, I had a lot of connections because I work construction. I was able to go on with my life. And I just wrote that one off as a mistake. So as we had an opportunity to go to Korea and teach there for a couple of years. When we came back, we bought the last house I bought in Florida. And that, I've had home inspections since then. I kind of followed the home inspector around, and he was talking about how busy he was, and his experiences with doing the home inspections. And my wife said, with your experiences, you ought to try that. So it's been in the back of my mind for probably close to 8 years before we moved. We came up here because I wanted to get out of the teaching thing, slow things down. I wanted to return to Tennessee. So we wound up here, and I wanted to get into the home inspection business. So in that, after we moved, I did 90 hours of certification classes through Inspection Certification Associates. And I took the state exam, passed it, but the courses that I was receiving there were a lot of video learning. And I'm a hands-on kind of guy. So I was seeking more. I joined Internashi, and I took all their classes on top of that to keep my certification like I was a new student, and I continue to take their classes because as a teacher, it's pretty important to keep yourself up on it. And things do change. Codes change. So I continue with the advanced courses. So of course we're here to get you to use me, and you want to know why. Well, my first thing is, right now, I'm a blank slate. I'm still in the school system until February 7th, which I understand you're having a big dinner for me that night. February 7th is my retirement date. So I'm gonna focus totally on the home inspections at that point. Until then, I've been doing afternoons, Saturdays, Sunday afternoons if I have to. It's okay now, but I want to pick things up a little bit and make this my full-time position. So right now, I'm pretty open. And I always feel like I'm very thorough, and I've been told by my customers that I'm very thorough. A few agents have told me that I'm very thorough. Sometimes it takes a little longer to do an inspection, but I feel like it's worth it. I had one client, however, that it took 5.5 hours on site because he had so many questions, and he's one of those guys, and you guys, I don't know if you've had it, but he actually, when I got there, he was having the septic tank pumped. He hadn't even really purchased the house yet. And that's like, wow. So he was that, he really wanted things right. But it was a 5.5 hour inspection.
But I will say that Tom applied to join for the sponsorship program. His reference says you cannot sing his praises enough.
Well, that's good. That's awesome.
But there were other agents who used it. I love him.
Well, I really like, and I really found how much I do enjoy teaching people about their homes. And I do sincerely like. Before becoming an inspector, here's my thing. The inspection reports that I've seen from others, there's a lot of words. It's like, you know, people try to wow you with what they know. And as a client, past client, I get an inspection report and I don't want to read a bunch of paragraphs about how my system works. I want to know what's going on, what I need to pay attention to, and move on with my life. Especially with the time crunch that a lot of you guys are on. So when I keep things simple, I try not to overload people with past knowledge. I try to stick with the defect, take a picture of it, explain what's wrong, what it can do, and then the fix or who to call. So I try not to create a panic. To me, that's a failure on my part if somebody panics about anything. I do try to be straight as far as the costly structural problems, the things that are going to cost, you know, $20,000 to fix. But I always try to end it on a high note. There's a lot of good things about properties around here that I've seen, and there's usually a positive point about everything. And I always offer to follow through with a phone call. I've even met people back at the house and do a walkthrough with them. And I don't, they're mine for the day. When they hire me, I don't try to rush. I don't try to get other people scheduled on the same day. You know, they rent me for the day. So, the simplification of my reports. I don't have big red boxes with a lot of warning flags. I do have a warning flag. If it's a safety issue, that's the icon they'll see. Mostly green checks, and then if it needs a repair, I have the little repair logo. This is something to monitor, and if I can't get to it, it's not accessible. To me, that points to the client as to what the problem is without saying, "Wah, walk away," because they get too many of those red boxes, they're going to turn their head. So, it's an example of one. This is a sink that was leaking. As you know on the report, there's just a simple diagram. This needs to be repaired. And an explanation of what I saw. The sink along the exterior wall was leaking at the nut for the stopper, and the stopper was broken. Very simple. Doesn't create a panic. The client was there, so I happened to show him where it was, so that I didn't get worried about, you know, I recommend a qualified plumber, or I just said, this is something that you could probably pop off. Stick a PO plug in there. So, now I'd like to have you guys talk to me about what your concerns might be, how I could help your clients.
Do you have like a pricing list? Is based off square footage, or is it?
It's based off square footage and age of home. Usually they range $350 to $400.
Okay.
Radon test, I'll usually, if it's with the inspection, I'll charge $50 for a radon test.
Okay.
If it's just the radon test, it's $100. And basically I go from there.
With the radon test, like, is that when, like, that you come back after a couple of days?
2 days, yeah, 48 hours. It's a machine I set up, and it'll monitor every hour the radon levels. I didn't bring an example of that, but it brings a nice hourly graph. It's also, you know, a visual graph and how it is, and it'll make recommendations at the end.
So radon, it basically comes from like basements, things like that. Right?
Well, it's decayed stuff underground that seeps in. Usually there's a crack along a plumbing pipe, or, you know, slab settlements occur all the time.
If it's an older home too, they won't have the plastic underneath the slab, so it'll come through that. Cause it'll go through concrete just like it would go through rock.
But it's kind of weird around. What I've noticed around here is you can pull into a neighborhood, and I kind of keep an eye out for mitigation systems as I go. And like a house on one side of the street could have, you know, a mitigation system, and then I'll run a test on the house right across the street from it, and it'll be minimal.
It's also
So-
very person dependent too, because that's how it is. I mean, my neighbors tested the same level. I had really high radon in my house. I had a good system put in, and
Uh-huh.
my neighbors also tested high, and they're like, well, we're 60 years old. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
we
that's-
made it this long. I
That's
don't
the
care.
way I look at it.
So,
And, you know, but I had a client who tested high, and he was 60-something, and I said, you know, well, your age, it could be 20 years. He goes, I know it, but still, I want to be safe.
Yep.
So he
Yep.
paid for the mitigation. It was-
Uh-huh.
All right.
but you're right. It could literally be next door, and they might have 0 level.
Yeah.
So,
So it's a crapshoot on what you're gonna get. And that, you know, a weakness of mine is trying to sell those kind of services. Because I'm not, you know, I don't wanna be a pushy salesman. I'm just not that type.
I think most people would appreciate that.
Yeah, well,
yeah, health wise.
I'm the same way. I'm just like a bare. Give me the bare minimum.
yeah, and it's,
It'll feed me full club.
Especially if
Right.
it's unnecessary.
absolutely.
You know,
And,
if it's not necessary, then why go
and I get turned off if somebody's trying to push stuff on me. And so I just try to use the way I feel on my clients. It's like, I don't wanna push this guy, but I'll say, you know, there is radon in this area. This is one of the higher areas in the United States for that, so you might wanna consider it. And then they'll usually say, well, how much would that be? So, well, if it goes through the home inspection, it's $50. And $50 is really.
I don't remember who I used for my home inspections. I paid like, I think it was like 175
Yeah, some
for my
people.
radon test. And I was like, because
Yeah.
my home inspection too was like 550.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had one to be 550. My
I'm
price
just under
sheet,
3,000 square feet, and it's like 1973.
yeah.
But
I've done houses in the 1930s, and maybe, I think 450 is about as high as I've run.
well, I don't remember who my inspector was, so you can tell I don't recognize.
Okay. Well, if there's anything that comes up, you know, I'd be happy to meet one-on-one over coffee or whatever and talk to you guys. I'll share a report. I didn't bring in the handout and stuff because I just don't go there. But
We have Tom's business cards with the sponsor information and the work session. Do you have a website?
yeah, Accurate Inspections 423. Anyway, if you can't remember me by me, you can always remember me as the guy that looks like this. I didn't realize that until I saw this picture. It's like, wait a minute, I look like Mr. Magoo. Anyway, that's just what I'm seeing. So I appreciate it, guys, and if there's anything I can do, just let me know. I-
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Thanks
Awesome.
for the yummy lunch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, I'm looking
See how
forward.
long your availability stays open.
We'll see. I did bring, you guys, I'm sure you've done the houses with little kids. I did an inspection one day, and they brought their kids.